Hey guys, it's Speed. Now, over the weekend, Blizzard has activated Mythic Plus for testing on the Dragonflight beta, so let's go over it. First off, they made a big post here about their ideas behind the first season of Dragonflight. So let's take a look at it. Basically, here's seasonal dungeon rotation. They said, if you read over this, their basic idea is that in each season, raiders get a new raid to figure out. But in Mythic Plus, it was always the same dungeons over and over throughout the expansion. Maybe they had those few mega dungeons in to spice it up a little bit, but long story short, you had to grind the same gear over and over every season. So, and one the same dungeon. So they thought the idea of a rotation will just help spice it up, just like it spices up for raiders. And I totally agree with this. It was just, the last few expansions, every season comes out, and it's just like, well, it's the same dungeons, except they're harder, and I have to regrind all the old gear. So I'm fine with it. It's gonna cause a little bit of like problems because when they bring back old dungeons, they always just seem to be tuned funky. I'm looking at you, Karazhan, but they're already posting a lot of nerfs to Hall of Valor, which is one of the returning dungeons. So hopefully they're on top of the tuning of the older dungeons that are rotating in. So I have no problem with this. Now they're talking about seasonal affixes. Um, they talk about the seasonal effects. It's just a way to shake up the gameplay. It gives you something different to do in the dungeon season over seasons. But now the idea that they're going to rotate in new dungeons, they don't need to do the seasonal fix to give something new to the dungeons because there's just going to be new dungeons rotating in every season. So they're going to tone down how complex the seasonal fix is going to be, which this is where a lot of people are having not agreeing with Blizzard here because the basic idea is they're taking away the Kiss curse away from the seasonal effects. And if you don't know what that means, is the seasonal effects, it adds something harder to the dungeon. So that's the curse part of it. So you have to deal with this new challenge, but after you overcome it, you got some kind of buff or a kiss. So in the last season of Shadowlands, you have these extra mobs that are disguised throughout the dungeons that are kind of like harder mobs or a mini boss mob. But when you kill them, you got a stacking debuff of a secondary of your choice. But they want to move away from that Kiss curse because it gets kind of complicated because they have to make the curse really hard to warrant giving you some kind of kiss or buff from doing it. So they say they're going to tone down the seasonal effects and make it not so complicated, but at the same time not give you a buff because it's not so complicated. Problem is, we'll get to it later when I show you the seasonal effects, but it's just crazy. Um, they want to reward dedicated Mythic Plus players more, so now gear drops up to plus 20s instead of plus 15s. And then you can get higher gear. You can also then upgrade the gear higher, the higher your rating is, up to plus 20 rating. So this is good for people who just focus on Mythic Plus. It gives them a reason to push harder past 15 because you get a better reward. And then you can also upgrade your gear higher if you have the higher rating for getting all 20. So if you're a pure Mythic Plus player, you should like this because you're probably someone that can do plus 20s. Anyways, um, they also say they're going to um, and we've talked about this before, they're taking out Inspiring Necrotic. They're just giving them a break because Inspiring is kind of complex. Necrotic been around for a while, and it's just a very annoying affix for the tanks. Now, tanks have a lot of burden in Mythic Plus because they have to know the routes, and now every season all the dungeons are going to change, so there's going to be a lot more burden on the tanks to learn the routes. So they wanted to take away the necrotic for them. So that's their blue post. Now let's look at some gameplay here of Mythic Plus in action. Now, this is a group I ran with, but a lot of people in the group were playing classes that were new to them, and maybe we should not have gone into a Mythic Plus with 3 people not playing classes they knew what they were doing with. So, once I figure out how to start the video, here we go. Now, the new affix can start off before the dungeon even starts, which I think is a bug. But the idea behind the new affix is it's called thundering. And it causes a whole lot of blue swirlies to appear, and if you stand in them, they stun you. And then, as the blue swirlies are still spawning, everyone gets a circle around them, then also shoots out balls out from you that will also damage and stun other people. And sure, it only goes off once a minute, but it is very, very annoying effects. Now, I'm realizing here on my priest, I am having the bug that I cannot heal myself when I'm targeting either an enemy or someone else, so I was freaking out, why can't I heal myself? I think I fix it later. But yeah, that is what the new affix does. And I like their idea of toning down the kiss curse thing. Everyone is going up in arms. Oh my god, the kiss curse thing. And they want like kiss curse on every affix. Like, if I don't damage anyone with quaking, I should get a buff. I think that's going too far. But here's my... Thundering, I want it to pop up again just to show the craziness. Here it comes again. Blue swirlies everywhere, and then everyone has to spread out and shoot these orbs everywhere. And when you're in tight spaces, and then you're dealing with other mechanics, like this guy's throwing out like little swirlies, and then you also have to deal with the other affixes, like we turned on quaking and storming for some reason, because we wanted to make it more insane for ourselves. It's just too much. They need to either make the swirlies not spawn at the same time as you're trying to spread out and shoot the orbs around you, or tone it down a little bit. It just sucks that all the blue swirlies start to spawn, and then everyone like tries to pick their spot, but then more blue swirly spots, and then you're like, oh crap, I have to get out of the swirly, and then you move somewhere where your orb now hits someone else because you already had your feet planted. So it's a little much. I wish they just didn't make it so crazy. Like, here it comes again. Swirlies are still spawning, and then you have to find a place to stand still, and hopefully you don't get hit by a blue orb. So it's just too much at one time. Maybe if they spread it out, like the description of it says, a storm is rolling through, and it'd be cooler like if an actual storm rolled through, like you see tornadoes coming through, and just a few little swirlies on the ground, and maybe only 1 or 2 people get charged, or if everyone's gonna get just charged up, it's just not all at the same time. One person goes first, and then another person, and then another person, kind of like the prideful explosion that's out of you. Instead of just making it once every minute and it being super intense, just make it less intense, but spread over like maybe a 20-second period where like the storm rolls through and maybe some wind pushes you a little bit and one or two tornadoes come through. One or two, three, maybe bigger swirlies come down instead of a million little swirlies. It's just too much at one time. Um, and now I want to talk about the Kiss curse and the idea of that. Does everything need to be Kiss curse? Um, I don't think so. I think they added the Kiss curse because if you looked at it, every seasonal affix added new mobs to the dungeon. The first one was Infest, where a mob would be infested, and I think you couldn't CC them. I can't remember Infest, but I just remember the big thing was when you killed the mob, two little worms jumped out of them, and then they would run to other mobs and try to infest them, and you had to kill them so they didn't infest other ones. Because then, if they infested another mob, when you killed them, two more worms jumped out of them. Um, so it just became so that added more. Then they had what was the season two fix of BFA? I forget what it was called, but it's like every 25%, all the dead mobs you had. Um, Rose up as ghosts, kind of like Spiteful now, and then you had to fight them all. So once again, new mobs. The third season added the little like um, lieutenants in the mobs that like buffed everyone around them. So just everything added, every seasonal effect added new mobs. And then after a while, I think Blizzard realized it just wasn't fun adding new mobs that didn't give you count. I think the one season in BFA, the new mobs did give you a little bit of count. Um, and in Shadowlands Seasons 4, the Dreadlords do give you count, but because they replace a mob in a pack, they're disguised. So, I think Blizzard realized if they're just going to add new mobs to a dungeon that give you no count, it just sucked to add new mobs on top of the hardness of the Mythic Plus difficulty. So they wanted to reward you for killing these new mobs. So come season 4 BFA, they started adding something, some kind of benefit you got for killing these new mobs. Where there was the lieutenants at the end of BFA that made the teleports that go around, the prideful mobs at the start of Shadowlands that gave you the huge buff afterwards. So they rewarded you for killing these extra mobs, mini bosses they added through the dungeon. But in this one, they're taking out the extra mobs you have to deal with, and it's just like a new mechanic you have to deal with. So it's just not something you have to kill. So it's not really adding all this extra time of killing this extra mob. So I can see why they're getting rid of the Kiss curse, because the curse is not really going to um, slow you down in theory as much as before when you had just new mobs added to the dungeon. But a lot of people don't want to give up those buffs. There's some people that are just like, every effects need to have a Kiss curse, where if I kill explosives, maybe I should get like a little damage buff, or if I kill spitefuls, I get some health back. I think it's a little over the top to every effects having a Kiss curse, but I'm just watching back this footage, and it is just not fun playing with this effects. Like, I just sent my blue balls into my buddies over there on the side of me. It just gets crazy, and I don't know. I'm not really looking forward to this. I hope Blizzard tones it down a little bit. Like I said, my suggestion is don't make it so intense for a short time. Make it longer, but not as intense would be my suggestion. So that is my first thoughts here of Mythic Plus in Dragonflight. Hope everyone enjoyed this. See you next time.